Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing. Okay. Let's make a few more improvements. A few more corrections. So, the ship class is how we're going to model our ship. It's what data we need to maintain in order for the program to function. Now, the ship class in the original code was actually the game, the board, and everything. But just because you have a class doesn't mean you're actually using or following any object-oriented programming principles. And even though I've taken it and broken it up into 3 classes, it really doesn't mean that somewhere in here I'm not violating some of the principles of good object-oriented programming techniques. But you got to start somewhere, and then you have to refactor your code. So this code here is not creating and positioning ships. So that comment was just bad. This is just a ship, which just pretty much tracks where a ship is in the coordinate space of the game, and the ship doesn't even know that it's on a board. It just thinks it's just a ship. So, but I did say we need to be able to position ships on the board. So the ship can't do that because the ship doesn't know about other ships. As far as the ship's concerned, it's the only ship in the universe. So the board is the container for ships. And that's why we have this method here, setup ships. And setup ships is going to generate ships by calling the ship constructor and actually position the ships. So what we need to do here now is have some sort of a loop like what the previous code had, which was, I think, some of this stuff here. And no, I don't know what this was doing. Maybe this part here. No, I'm not sure what that's doing anyway. So let's just see if we can, instead of starting the ship at a fixed row column, let's just see if we can come up with a random one. So we need the random module. Yay. We need to generate a random number like this. Random int. Okay, so even though we display a 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, this board is actually going from 0 to 8. So the first thing we want to do is get a random number right here. Setup ships, game, board, setup ships. So let's just let's see, for ship number in range, and let's make 5 ships in range sub dot number ships. And actually, when we built the board, we should have put in, let's say we send it a ship count, and then this becomes the ship count, and the board init. When the game creates the board, we say ship count. Board size, ship count. Okay, so that means way down at the bottom, we finally said we want ship count equal 5. And I think it's about time we just went to 10 and fixed the display mistakes. So we have a 40 turn game with a 10 by 10 board with 5 ships on it. All right. So finally we get down here to set up board where we have an empty ship array, a ship list, and number of ships, and we need a random int so we'll start with random row equal random int from 0 to 10, which would take us from here. So let's say there was a 10 here. Only problem is, depending on the size of the ship, we don't want to go off the ship. I'm sorry, we don't want, depending on the size of the board, well, depending on the size of the ship and the board, we don't want to go off the board. In other words, if we had a 2 square ship, it could go here or even here. But if we have a 5 square ship, it can't go any, it has to start here at effectively 4. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this from 1 to 9, and I'm going to change that to go from 0. So things don't get too confusing. So that is in display. Okay, so display here, we're going to start here at 0, number of columns, and see what that looks like. Okay, so it goes 0. So 5 can start here, but 4 can start as late as here, and 3 can start here, and 2 can start here. So first thing we ought to do is decide before we can start building ships up here, we need to know the ship size. So random size equal random int from 2, 5. Oh, sorry, he already had it. So we'll just do this then. Min ship size max ship size. Okay, and then once we know that, we can go ship dot how big is the board? Length, number of rows, number of columns. Let's do it like that. Ran DOM size. Number of columns. Okay, so theoretically now, we first figure out how big the ship is, and then we figure out how far back we have to come to position it, because what we're going to get here is the start row. And the longer the ship is, the earlier we have to start it. So then now, we have a row and a column. We need an orientation. And that can be 0 or 1, or that can be random. What I really want is that random choice puppy. Is that here? That's not here. Let's go get it. Random.choice. So we really want this code right here. So set up here. Okay, so orientations can be horizontal or vertical. And then down here, okay, that's related to that, that's related to that of the orientations. Okay, so then now, once we have a ship, we can just append it. Okay, so the start row is the random row. And the start column is the random column. And the start size is the random size. And the orientation is the random, or oops, random orientation. Okay, so that means we don't want these four. Okay, so this should create 5 random ships horizontally and vertically. Like that. Like that. So let's see what we got. Random is not defined. That's on line 16. No, it's not on line 16. Where's that at? Name random is not defined. Line 168. Random. They import random int from random. Let's try that. What the what? Import random.choice. I hate clicking in that thing there. Let me see then. 168. I guess it's just choice. Oh, choice is not defined. What the what? I don't like any of this. Yada, 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 yada. Okay, we got one horizontal ship, 4 vertical ships, but this is where we got the collision. Needs to be avoided. So right now I'm assigning 1s for the ship. I think maybe I should just put 1s for the first ship, 2s for the second ship, 3s for the third ship. And that'll let me demonstrate something else. So what I'm going to do is the ship class is going to get a ship ID. And that's going to start off at 1. And what is this doing? That needs to be a 0. This is hit test. This will remove the ship. But I need to put in here a ship ID. And then after I do that, I need to bump the ship ID. Something like that. Let's see what that does. Yeah, it's great. I don't like this. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do is say ship.ship ID. Okay. So our first ship was horizontal. Our second ship was vertical. The third ship was vertical. The fourth ship was horizontal. And the fifth ship is vertical. Let's try to hit this ship at row 2, 3. 2, 3. And we hit it, because now it has a 0 there. So this ship that was 5 is now 4. So instead of having 4 5s, 5 5s, it's now 4 5s. So that's doing what it's supposed to do. So now every time we place a ship, we create a ship here. When we create these random values, we need to know if there's a conflict. So we need to know if from the start row, well, we need to fix this conflict, potential conflict. Let's see if we can make a conflict. And well, this could have been a conflict and we wouldn't even know, because even though this was the 5th ship, I filled it with 5s. Maybe I should fill it with the length of the ship. And so this should be 4, and these should be 4s. I think that might be more useful. So let's not have a ship ID. So let's come down here to the ship. Let's lose the ship ID temporarily, and let's just use the size. Right here, let's try the size. See which gives us useful information. Okay, ship ID plus equal 1. We don't want a ship ID. Okay, so let's save and run. Boom. Okay. So now we have a ship that's size 5, and it's got 5 5s. We got a ship that's size 2, and it's got 2 2s. We got a ship that's 4. We got 4 4s, and then we got another one over here, and there's no conflict. But this ship was supposed to be 4 4s, but it got overwritten by a 5. So there's a collision. Here to there. Let's try this. There's the collision. Ooh, isn't that cute? Okay, so what we gotta do now is turn off the stupid brush thingy. Okay, so set up ships. Notice that this barely caught the edge of the board. The 4. Okay. So before we append the ship, we need to test the board. Okay, so for row in range of random row. Actually, let's look at the orientation first. If the random orientation is equal to horizontal, else we'll deal with the vertical. So if it's horizontal, then we're going to step over the column. Column in range size, random size, and then we want to test this. If self.board No. That's not going to work because we're going to have all zeros in the board. We don't have any way in the board of knowing where the ships are. This is something that we generate each time. So what we want to do is kind of like a process guess. It looks like we're going to have to put the hit test back in. But we don't want it to go to 0. We just want to kind of peek. Def peek. So row column. And we want this. Okay, well, no, that's not going to happen. We just don't want to set that to 0. So we want to ask all the ships, are they in this position? Do they occupy this position? Do they overlap this position? And we want to return true. But we don't want to set it. We just want to kind of like test it. So here we should say process hit. So let me cut this. And let's make that one. So then let's look for hit test. And we'll call it process hit. And that's to test the ships. But then to set up the ships, we want to do a peek, but we're going to make it a hit test without actually changing the board. So we're not going to process the hit, we're just going to test the hit. So let's just call it test hit. So that's when we start making the ships here. So we need to test all the ships. So that means we got to go over all the ships. So for ship in ships, if ship dot test hit on our random row, random column plus the column, then there's a collision, so we continue. Okay, we don't take that location. Otherwise, it's vertical, so we step over the row to the size, we go to the ship, and we add that plus the row, keeping the column constant. And if there's a collision, then we continue. We don't want to continue though, because that's going to cause us to bump the ship count without actually adding the ship. So we got the ship number here. Okay, so this needs to be a while. While ship number is less than the number of ships that we want. And then here we bump the ship count. After we add, after we add the ship, we bump the ship count. And up here we have to set that count to 0. So we have no ships. And until we have 5 ships, we keep generating random ship locations and sizes and orientations. Make sure there's no overlap. And then we add a ship. So let's see what we get now. Oh boy. If hit test. Guess we need colons. Self dot hit test self comma. $291. Okay, 186. Okay, where's our ship list? Oh, self. Oh, okay. What do you mean? Ship in self.ships. Okay, let's see what we got. We got a 3B over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 ships, a 3B, a 5B, a 4B, and notice that there's no overlap. Oops, looks like we got an overlap. So somehow this 3 got taken out by a 4. Okay, let's see then. That's a horizontal ship that later got replaced by a vertical part of a vertical ship. So how did that happen? So this hit test didn't work. Oh, because the continue only took us to here. Didn't take us out here. Yeah. Ooh, that should have been an infinite loop then. No, that's definitely not going to work. That just took us to the next ship. This is going to be a little bit of a pain because we need to go to this while. So, yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to say collision, false. Collision, true. And if not, let's see if collision. Then we'll continue. Yeah, we'll continue if there's a collision. Let's see. Oops. Cancel. Cancel. Not now. Leave me alone. Okay, we got a 5, we got a 2, we got a 4, we got some 5s, we got some 3s. We got some 3s, some 5s, but no collision. If there's a collision, we need to say so. Just so we'll know if it's working or if we're just lucky. Oh, there was a collision. There was a collision up here. But we got a 4, 4, 4. So that seems to be doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. We're getting random boards. It means we can almost play the game.